I'm troubled by a number of things, including some exchanges you had a few minutes ago with a couple of my colleagues, one in particular dealing with your definition of operational control. This wouldn't trouble me quite the same way that it does, but for the fact that this isn't just a casual term of art that people throw around. Nor is it a term that made its first appearance with your service at the Department of Homeland Security. This is a statutorily defined term of art. And Congress has defined it now for the last 17 years as involving the prevention of all unlawful entries into the United States. And so it appears to me that your definition, which has to do with maximizing resources, it distorts this. It appears to me to be something that is perhaps an intentional effort to obfuscate the real problem, to hide the absolute humanitarian and legal disaster that we have unfolding on our southern border, one with massive national security implications and human health implications, as we've seen 110,000 Americans die from fentanyl just last year. All that fentanyl, by the way, comes from Mexico. It's no mystery where it's coming from. It's not made here, not even made in China anymore. The stuff that shows up here, it's made in Mexico. And so perhaps this redefinition helps hide that, helps obscure it, but it still doesn't help. Look, this is making it worse. What you're doing is making a lot of things worse. And I'm concerned that this shows up in a number of areas. I'm going to talk about some of those today. Shows up in your use of parole. It shows up on issues related to asylum. And it shows up in issues related to the detention of asylum applicants. Let's talk about parole first. In one of these efforts to disguise the political impact, to diffuse the political impact and disguise what's actually happening, you've started to rename things and rebrand them so that the numbers seem to be improving more than they actually are, but they aren't. It's come to my attention that you've created at least 13 new parole programs within the Department of Homeland Security. Now, I find this odd, because you break them down by things like country of origin. But I find this odd because the statute itself creating parole, which is found in 8 U.S.C. 1182 D5A, says that the Secretary of Homeland Security, subject to certain conditions, may parole into the United States temporarily under such conditions as he may prescribe, only on a case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons or a significant public benefit, any alien applying for admission to the United States. So Congress went way out of its way to define that and to say this must be handled on a case-by-case basis. No broad grants of these are the kinds of people we're going to parole in. Now, what qualifies as an urgent humanitarian reason or a significant public benefit, in your view, seems to be anything that will appear to reduce regular immigration. This is so far afield from the definition that Congress actually authorized by statute, and far beyond what it's heretofore been understood to do and what the words themselves mean, which is to provide a way that somebody could come in the case of a medical emergency under that portion of the statutory language, or, for example, someone who is coming in under the public benefit prong from a foreign country who's needed to testify in a jury trial or something like that, and then be returned. Parole wasn't intended to be broad, nor was it intended to provide someone a permanent residence or a residence that can become permanent within the United States. And so this is really concerning to me. When we see this, I wonder how you can possibly defend the legality of this. It shows up further in the way that you're handling asylum. Let me ask you this, Mr. Secretary. Does anyone coming into our border have a right to asylum? Or is this rather a grant of discretion to you as the Secretary of Homeland Security to grant it where you deem appropriate, under the circumstances prescribed by the law?
Currently, Senator, we are exercising the public health authority of Title 42, and under Title 42, a claim of asylum cannot be made. The individual is expelled under that public health authority, and irrespective of the facts. So let's put that aside.
I know you want to talk about Title 42. Title 42 is going away in a few weeks.
So then an individual who arrives at our border may claim fear of persecution by reason of their membership in a particular social group.
I get that. I know the standard. I'm asking you, is it a right or is it an act of discretion on your part? Because remember, the language says the Secretary may grant them asylum. May. May is not shall. So is it discretionary or is it mandatory on your part?
We have the ability to make a discretionary decision with respect to the grant of asylum based upon the factors that we evaluate.
Okay. Now,
I have something to say about parole, but perhaps
sure.
the question's
If
not
we've got time to that, I want to talk about this first. Your exchange with one of my colleagues, I think it may have been Senator Graham earlier, you seem to concede, at least for purposes of discussion, that most asylum applicants don't get in, and that the number may be something like 9 out of 10 who don't get in. I know it varies from country to country, but it's more or less 9 out of 10, or some large number, some large percentage of asylum applicants are not eligible to come in. Is that right?
That is correct. That the number who qualify under the initial threshold of credible fear is larger than the number of individuals who actually ultimately succeed in their final asylum adjudication.
Right. In fact, federal law...
That's purposeful by design of the statutory framework.
Under 8 U.S.C. Section 1225b1, an alien awaiting an asylum determination, a ruling on his or her asylum application, is subject to mandatory detention. It says that the alien shall be detained pending a final determination of credible fear of persecution, and if found not to have such fear, until removed. And yet, you're not currently detaining all asylum applicants, are you?
Senator, I believe this very issue is a subject of ongoing litigation. I will only say this, therefore, that the Department of Homeland Security, specifically Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has never had the detention capacity to detain every asylum seeker.
I'm not asking whether you've got that detention capacity or whether they have in the past. I'm asking what is supposed to happen. And the truth is, under the statutory provision I just read to you, you're supposed to detain them. And yet you don't. And as far as running out of detention capacity, you are, in fact, getting rid of detention space. Are you not? As reported by Fox News just yesterday?
No.
And what about the fact that
no,
the ICE detention budget has been slashed by this administration to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars?
Senator, we're not reducing the amount of detention space. I don't know to what that report refers. I'm not sure what that report refers to. We're not diminishing the amount of detention space right now.
You are not deporting people once you reach your cap of the detention space, and that is a problem. Because you've said time and time again in front of this committee and in other contexts, you and other members of this administration have said over and over again that the system is broken, the process is broken, the law is broken, and then you blame it on Congress. Well, maybe that's good if what you're wanting to do is advocate for some kind of reform that involves amnesty. Okay, but it's just not true as far as the asylum process, because if the asylum process were followed by the law, you would turn people away. You would send them back once you ran out of detention space. You'd detain those who you're supposed to detain, and then you'd send the rest back. And this is a big problem. Look, I'm running out of time. I am concerned about a number of things that I'll follow up with questions for the record, but a couple of closing issues, just in short. First, I'm very concerned about your Office of Intelligence and Analysis. There's been a letter sent to you by the House Homeland Security Committee that you have not answered. When they do answer that, I would love to get those answers, those responses, and I would also like a briefing on this in the very near future. We need to know what's in there. Look, at the end of the day, it appears to me that you are not enforcing the law. You are redefining key statutory terms in order to obfuscate the fact that you're not enforcing the law. This is a fireable offense. Your department has spent an enormous amount of money preparing for impeachment proceedings, like $3 million preparing for impeachment proceedings. Could it be perhaps that they know that you have been doing this, that you've been redefining statutory terms, failing to enforce the law? That seems removable to me. Thank you.
Senator, I respectfully disagree with you, and I look forward to the opportunity to addressing your concerns.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much.
Just, if I can make an announcement. After Senator Klobuchar, there'll be a 10-minute break, so we have a roll call on the floor. Some members may want to take advantage of it now. I'm going to be one of them. Senator Klobuchar.